All right, welcome back to another episode about the Lotus Emira. Today I wanted to highlight the benefits, pros and cons perhaps, of wrapping such a vehicle as this. This is the first time I've ever personally paid to have a wrap done on a car. My other car, the Xenos, is also wrapped, but I think there were some challenges that the Lotus presented that most cars don't, especially if you opt for not removing the body panels. So you'll see later in the video what the cost was for this particular wrap. You'll also hear about some quotes I received in relation to a different type of wrap and different type of process. But if you're considering wrapping the car either yourself or paying for a company to wrap it, hopefully this will lend you some insight on what to look for or potentially what not to look for in the project. So before we start with that, I do have 3 things that I have to ask right off the bat, and I need your help. No, this is not for any type of social media engagement. This is genuinely for me to figure out what I want to do with this car. So here goes. What do you like better? Big numbers or small numbers? Third option, big numbers in the font of the small numbers. Final hot take. Do I wrap the hood like the rendering, or do I leave it carbon fiber? Okay, so one thing I wanted to discuss today was the idea of wrapping your vehicle, specifically the Lotus Emira, mostly because of the curvature of the car and what you have to do to make that possible. So the pricing that I got from the shops that I reached out to was quite frankly all over the place. I had everything from around $5,500 to wrap this car in the two-tone that you see here, upwards of $12,000. The $12,000 was for PPF, where this specifically is just a wrap. PPF was honestly the way to go. It's a lot thicker, it protects the paint. Apparently it's more resistant to sunlight and discoloration. And then of course, from tracking the vehicle, you're gonna see stains. You can see this right here. It actually looks a lot worse on camera than it is in reality, but you're gonna see stains from rubber bouncing off the front end. And PPF will have that same effect, but it's just gonna protect it better. Other aspects of the wrap that differ from PPF is it's much, much thinner. I believe it's 1 millimeter thick versus 3 to 4 millimeter thick. You can see rock chips physically puncture a hole in the wrap itself. I do have, I would say, a fair few of them. The car's kind of dirty, so they're not standing out completely, but the lower you go, the more there are. So the PPF will protect the vehicle much, much better, just because the wrap is thinner and less durable. So long story short, with the quotes that I received and the disparity in price, I wasn't really sure which way to go. Obviously, I wanted the benefits of the PPF, but I also, because of how radical the color scheme is, if I didn't like it, chipping out $10,000, $12,000 is a lot of money. So I figured let's go less expensive now, and then if I love it, do it the right way down the road. So that's what I did. So this was a bumper on, 0 disassembly project, 2-tone wrap job. It took them a little while because they're working on it in between projects. We'll say 2 weeks, for around $5,500. I removed the PPF that was on it from the factory myself. They cleaned the car, detailed the car, wrapped the car, and then ceramic coated it for around $5,500. Now, with that said, I would not have done this under any circumstance if I couldn't also get the door jambs and trunk jambs done as well, because I think it just looks cheap when this is a vastly different color. And with Seneca Blue, you can see in the crack there, that would have stuck out like a sore thumb. So that's the only area that they have not done. And without disassembling the door, it's just gonna be difficult to get in there. But honestly, from anything less than a head-on view, you physically can't see it. So trunk, same thing. That keeps coming off on this car. That's so frustrating. If anyone else has that problem, let me know. I don't know if I should double side tape this or glue it, but it's getting old, that's for sure. Anyway, that's not what we're here for. If you step back, they took care of all of the inside of the trunk or whatever's showing in here as well. And then I went back later after purchasing the new hood, and to the best of my ability, did the front cutouts. It's not perfect. It's pretty darn good though. I actually impressed myself with that level of detail, but it could use some perfecting. So just to repeat, $5,500, two-tone wrap, 3M. I figured this might be a good time to take a pause and show you exactly which wrap and color I used. You'll see in a second that the color of the yellow on the outside is very, very, very similar to the color of the Lotus emblem and the calipers. I wanted to get as close as possible to the rendering, but I wanted it to be a little brighter and matching the emblem and the calipers as much as I could. So they're both 3M 2080. One is gloss lucid yellow. The other one is matte dark gray. 3M is one of the best names in the business, and you can't go wrong if you're choosing wrap. And even with the highest quality wrap, there's still mistakes. This isn't me slighting the company that wrapped it, but there's still mistakes. And I'm taking it back in next week to have it corrected. You will see the front has to be done in multiple layers. So depending on the color, that's gonna be more obvious. They're actually replacing these two front spats due to where it's peeling up. You could not see that blue when I first got it. It has since started to peel back, I'm assuming from wear and heat. And then of course you see right on the edge, it's picked up. So they're gonna redo this whole section. You can also see it on this side. So that's one correction that needs to be made. Same thing on the corner here, although that is the same piece. So that will get redone. The other big area of concern, which happened pretty immediately, were these back rings on the arrow. I think it's just the shape of it, to be quite honest. But you can see where the corners have completely picked up and have come loose. Sorry, the car is filthy. The weather has not been fantastic lately. So they're gonna redo these. And in fact, the GT4 rendering, it was a little larger, so I might have them go out a little bit more. I've also been thinking about getting those rear bumper carbon fiber arrow pieces to break up the gray, or doing something more with the wrap. But same on this side, it's coming up in the corners, probably just because of the way that's stretched. So that's something that's getting redone. And as much as I love the door jambs, this is also where we're seeing some issue in the corner. It starts coming up and then eventually it cracks in the bubble. Where before, like this area looked absolutely perfect. Outside of that, the wrap looks pretty good. Again, I think this guy was fairly new at doing this, so I was a little nervous. But to be honest, I don't know what to expect out of a wrap job. The other areas you can see is like on these lines. The lines aren't perfect. I don't know if it's even possible to ever be perfect. I'm not too concerned about that because to the naked eye, nobody notices. But the edges peeling up, that's problematic because everybody sees that. And now because they've peeled up, you can see some of the blue shining through. You also see it's starting to peel a hair on the ridge. And it's just a dead giveaway. I am having some issues after I take a drive where this bumper slips out a hair. You can see it right there, how much play there is. And once it pops out, you do see the blue from above in the crack. So that's kind of frustrating. But again, we did not remove the rear bumper to apply the wrap. Similar story here. Over time, just heat and flex has allowed that blue to shine through. But overall, not too bad. I'm also curious from people that have had their Lotus wrapped, how did they do this ducting area? Was it one piece? Is it possible to do it one piece? Or did they kind of fold it over the edge and then marry it up underneath? Because that's where all of these bubbles start to form and then the wrap starts to separate. But I can only imagine trying to flex one piece of wrap to fit that panel. I mean, that's pretty severe. Without removing these, they had a difficult time getting the handle right. So, I mean, you're reminded of that every time you open the door, which sucks. But when it's closed, you simply can't tell. So I haven't really created a fuss about that. I need to get in here and remove these door handles and improve that, probably myself. But the questions I have from a quality perspective is you can see down there on the other side of the fender, the wrap is starting to peel. You can see on this side of the fender, potentially, the wrap is starting to peel. And then I removed the hood that they did the first time. But the corners, from the videos I've seen, the way they did the corners is not how a professional's supposed to do them. Again, I think the guy was newer, he's learning. That was probably reflected in the price. So at the overall cost, I would say it was worth it. Most of these things nobody probably notices except for myself. The one thing I will say is at a car show, for whatever reason, I think people are curious enough to know if it's painted or wrapped, and they scrutinize the heck out of this car. So if you have yours wrapped and it's multi-tone, prepare for that. But there's pieces that I've wrapped myself, which we'll get into here in a second, including these end plates on the spoiler. And when it went down great. But over time, same thing, the corners are starting to lift, which looks like crap. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is here. I don't know if my expectations were too much. I don't know, if professional wrappers saw this, if they were like, no, that's pretty good. That's a difficult car to wrap. Or if they'd say, yeah, there's a lot of room to be desired. Or, you get what you pay for from a pricing standpoint. Would they say, great price, decent enough job, you got a deal? Or if they would say, hey, you just threw away $5,500 and should probably have it done by a professional. I have the quote from the Xenos, and that's a two-tone job as well, the entire car wrapped, albeit less wrap probably, and maybe less difficult. And it was half of what I paid for this. So I don't know where the pricing goes over the years. I don't know if this was too much, too little, whatever. The last thing I will say is if we can look at it off the light, I don't know if I can capture it. Maybe you can see it there. Let's look on this side. Anyway, if you look at it right off the light, if it hits it appropriately, you also see a lot of trash underneath the wrap. But again, if I can't find it now, I would say it's not really fair to be upset about. But there is trash in here. There's a little bit there, if it focuses, that I was initially frustrated with. And I actually said something to the owner of the company. But again, price point, 45% of what others quoted me. Do I have room to complain or care? I don't know. I don't want this to come off as sounding like I'm not thrilled or happy by the outcome of the car, especially since it's being tracked and will get damaged. I'm just making this to say, you know, if you are planning on wrapping your Emira, again, I was quoted 55 to, I would say, 7 for basic wrap, two-tone, exactly what you see here, including door jams. And I was quoted 10 to 12,000 for PPF. One thing to note on both of those quotes, though, no matter where I went, it was an extra $1,000 to do the door jam. And the company that wanted to do the PPF, they wanted to hire an exotic car company to do the disassembly. So that was another difference in price. The PPF company was going to disassemble it and do it, quote unquote, the right way. This company, they quoted with bumpers and everything on, they called it the 5-foot view. So I don't know what that company would have charged to disassemble on top of the PPF cost. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts. The one other question I have is, I went from the big numbers that I hand cut myself. I removed those recently just because they needed to be professionally printed. The 3 looked like a Euro sign, and I wanted them to be done right and probably done to the rendering. And I said, you know what? Since it is half daily driven, I had an idea to do smaller numbers in the back. And I could use some input. What do you like better? Big numbers or small numbers? Third option, big numbers in the font of the small numbers. Final hot take. Do I wrap the hood like the rendering, or do I leave it carbon fiber? Challenging. A lot of questions, a lot of questions. But if you have any advice, any input on the wrap itself, if you want to share your own experience to help me understand where to go next from here, please let me know. All right. The car's a little dirty. Probably should have washed it before I did this, but got the best cleaner on the face of the planet. Spray away glass cleaner. Think I'm joking. I'm not. It's pretty phenomenal. In fact, a lot of painters, automotive painters, use this after their prep work to further prepare the surface before laying down their first coat of primer and or paint. So, solid cleaner. It's an ammonia-free cleaner, but it does the job, and I'm a chemical man, so, you know, there's a reason we use chemicals in life. It's because they work. All this organic stuff, not a fan. Sorry, world. I mean, unless it gets the job done, I suppose. Which nowadays, everything's pretty much organic. So you use what you got. The other thing I'll say about this wrap too is that it does stain. I don't know if it's from something in the trees in this area, or if it's, again, from just burning, you know, from burn marks. And the stain is like a friction stain, but it does stain. All right, so where do we want this? To me, once we scoot back, the number is a little high and a little to the right. I measured 6 inches from the wheel well to the flat face of the 7, 4 inches from the door to to the flat face of the 3. And then we'll measure from the bottom. So if we're trying to get it centered, do we want it centered? I can still pull it back to the rear wheel a couple inches. I guess 1 would be ideal. All right, so I pulled it back 1 inch. I think it does look better. I gotta measure it up. And then the next question is, do I have it lay over the curvature of the door or kind of sit on top? It looks like it's gonna be just on top where it stands. And if I bring it down, the curve is gonna kick the bottom of that 3 out. So I think I kind of like where it's at. Now we just gotta make sure that it's level. So let's see. All right, so we should be looking about 5 inches from both sides. That's sitting at 4.5. This is sitting at 5.25. So we could slide it this way a hair if we want, although I kind of like where it's sitting, a little more rear facing there, or rear balanced. Now, how do we want to measure the levelness of it? I meant to bring my level out here, but I think it gives you a false reading. Actually, let me go get it. Why not? All right, 2 forms of measuring this. Let this rest on the line. Apparently it's looking like the back's a little high. Which this is not a perfect form of determining this. We're gonna obviously use the measuring tape as well. But at least it gives us something to go off and compare to. Let's see. That's pretty dead nuts. Let's do this off of the side skirt. I think we provide a flat edge for this to operate off. Let's see. 7.25. 7.25. Okay, now I'm gonna take a step back and also gauge it. That's looking pretty good. I mean, the question, are any of these perfect on any vehicle? It's not like we're walking around with measuring tapes in our pockets, you know? So what I'm gonna do is, just like the other one, tape this top edge. Which should allow us some play here. And hopefully we'll have room to peel back the tape or the backing layer. Although now the front looks low. Let's see what we got. This is where the lift would be helpful. So then you can actually put a level eye on it. It's not like this is completely flat. It moves too. I mean, heck, for my eyeballs, it's as close as I'm probably gonna get it. I also have a laser level, which would have been helpful, but you're not gonna see that in direct sunlight. I mean, that's as close as I'm gonna reasonably be able to measure it, so let's see if we can't make something happen with this. It'd also be nice to run a tape line. Based on this calculation, we're assuming that the sheet of paper was also cut perfectly straight. So far, every other one was though, so kind of trust it. Let's measure that too to be sure. Huh, a little over 3/8. Yeah, that's straight. Removing these staples, can we effectively peel the backing layer and then let it fall into place? Again, I don't know if perfection is in the cards, but it should be pretty close. Let's wipe it one more time. Here I am scrutinizing the wrap and see how I'm doing this, so who am I to judge? Well, that didn't help. Make sure this all lines up. And it did shift because this ripped. So, the question is how much? Maybe just go from the bottom up since we feel confident in our line. I'm gonna look once more from afar. Yeah, I honestly think that's as close as I'm gonna be able to get this. I was gonna tape a whole square around it, but I don't think it's necessary. Start in the center and then work our way out. I did leave these in my car for like 2 weeks. I don't know if it's humidity or what, but the paper was definitely looking a little worse for wear, so I do not recommend you leaving these in a vehicle or anything that's not temperature controlled. I do believe 3M is dry application. At least that's what the people that wrap the car said. I always thought that all wraps you could wet apply. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Don't quote me on that. But this 3M does have the air channels to help get bubbles out. All right, and I don't have a, what are those things called? A swisher? Nah. A squeegee? I don't have a squeegee to work with, so we're just using our fingers here. It wasn't expensive. These were pretty cheap to have cut. You can always cut more. And the company, Fast Signs, shout out to Fast Sign Savannah, that actually did this. Rather than trying to print and match the yellow, they ordered the exact wrap for me and then cut all of this custom. So here's the proof that I used to print these custom decals, including the sizes of each decal. Of course, with the number decals and GT4 decal, you can adjust the size based on how large you want. But all of these are meant to mirror the GT4 renderings. If you're looking to get the specific vector, feel free to shoot me a message and I can send them to you, or look on emiraforums.com. I guess look for Fast Signs near you. And the price they charged me for the wrap itself was less than if I ordered it, which was interesting. Let's see. This thinner line doesn't like to be peeled back, or it's just not sticking well on the bottom. Should fall into place though, I think. Yep, see, I just got an air bubble or a crease. Let's see if we can push this out. This is what I did on the spoiler too. Oh, I hate that. Probably need to follow it with a squeegee. What are the tools that you need to do this stuff? Oh, there we go. Okay. Woo, we're all right. Don't panic. We're all right. We are okay. There's one. Let's take this tape off. Wonder if doesn't want to. Okay, cool. Top's not sticking too well. Not sure what that's about. Yeah, it's not sticking. Wonder if ceramic coat has anything to do with that. That's why I'm having some difficulty. Or is there something on it that I just didn't clean off well enough? I'm gonna go over this in a second once I get all of this applied. At 7, late the best. I think the sun will help heat this up and allow the glue to stick. I do have a heat gun that I typically then go over everything with. So I'll go bust that out, but the sun will certainly help as well. So let's take that off and have a look. The question is, does that look better than the big numbers? What are your thoughts? I kind of like it, but also kind of like the font, which was from the original rendering, which may make the big numbers look even better. So now I'm torn. All right. I should probably read the instructions before doing things, but my take is that you should apply heat to this after you stick it, because it's not very sticky when applying it, probably to allow you to move it around in case it's not in the right spot. And I believe heat will heat up that glue so that it doesn't immediately peel back off. So that's what we're gonna do. And so far I've done this on every other application and it seems to work well. So I feel like it's a good move. Just don't overheat it because then it'll warp. Maybe one day, could be today, probably not. Maybe one day I'll look up the actual instructions for how to apply this stuff. One day. Today is not that day. How much heat's the question? I have no idea. I mean, it's sitting in direct sunlight, so this is going to continue to heat up throughout the day, but it is like 42 degrees here right now. So there you have it. Nice. What a flattering angle. This side's a little different. I think it's because of the grade of my driveway, as well as I have zero room to back up and really inspect it from a distance. So I taped the smack out of it, measured repeatedly off of the straight edge on the bottom using the level, measured off of the line from above as well as the wheel well. Of course it's curved, so it makes it a little more difficult. But that's as close as I'm getting it. So here goes nothing. All right, I apologize how quickly I breezed through the installation of the decals on the spoiler and the windshield. When they came in, I was trying to get them ready for a car show that weekend, and I don't know, I was super excited. I was also by myself, and I just wanted to get them down. So it was not really a hold a phone or wear a GoPro situation. And instead, I just picked it up and talked you through my thought process on how to install them. In the end, it all came out okay, as you can see in the earlier footage. But if you need any help laying this stuff down, let me know. Ideally, I would have taken the wing off, as well as the brackets off, laid the decal, and then reapplied the brackets. But due to it already being mounted, I kind of took a lazy approach. Again, it's just a sticker, just a decal. It looks great. I can always redo it to have a full O in the future. Okay, so we're about to lay the Lotus logo, or the Lotus decal, across the top of the spoiler. The best way I know to do it is to do 2 tape lines on each edge. I'm gonna zoom out here for a second. I measured the edge to the secondary tape, because this is 2 pieces, to equate to 2 inches all the way down. So I feel pretty confident that this is a straight line. On the bottom side, it's just a standard width of tape, which is, I believe, 1.5 inches. This entire piece is going to be based on this center line of the spoiler. Without that, I think we're hosed. So what I'm going to do is I cut the L and the S off of this decal, because it's all based on the center, but also know that the paper's cut perfectly straight, and you're going to have the same spacing on the top and bottom of every single letter. So I think if we can get this center line right of the T onto the center line of the spoiler, everything else will fall in place. So my next move, now that everything's measured up, is to flip this upside down and cut this paper in half, like so that I can then peel it from the center and ensure that everything is lined up appropriately. If the center gets off, the whole thing will be off. Okay, the T is down, following the tape line here, as well as a portion of the left O. This is where it gets intense. This is where it gets more complicated, because the letters definitely merge into the brackets on both sides. And so I'm gonna have to cut this right where it runs in. I don't know, maybe slide paper on this side vertically and then cut it. I feel like this is pretty well lined up. The U hopefully will be far easier than the O, just less material. So we'll see. The challenging aspect of this wing is that the stays are angled. The end caps, I believe, angle in slightly. And there's really no lateral focal point outside of the edge. So the only thing you can really use, or at least what I used, was the carbon weave to find like a straight line. If you follow the grooves, assuming that this is perfectly straight. But to some degree, you basically just have to eyeball it. So that's what I did. A lot of painter's tape, a few eyeballs on it, and that's what we're gonna run with. All right, so for the window sticker, similar method. I found a good place where I thought I wanted it, so the edges are fully encompassing the ends of the windshield. I'll probably trim this down once it's on the glass. I can cut it even tighter if I need to, but I'm basically gonna follow the line of the rubber. And so long as the windshield line is just above the lettering, I'm okay with that. The windshield's already small enough as it is. I don't want to necessarily hinder my view. It'll also give me a bit of a guide to work from. But once I had it more or less where I wanted it, I taped the top edge so that I could wipe off the windshield itself. And then I put an underlayment of tape to show where I want the bottom edge, and then measured corner to hood on both sides. So all in all, I believe the measurements will suffice. Let's see. If you look on the inside, you can also get somewhat of a gauge based on the lettering and the stars, the patterns on the back. So you basically get what, like 2 stars and maybe a G on this side. But if you come to the passenger side, 2 stars and a G, same thing. So I feel pretty confident based on the measurements and the patterns that this is in the right space. So we'll, same thing, cut the backing in the center so that I can flip it over and then fold it back down. I've already sliced right through, which sucks, but it's just a decal, right? It can be reprinted, they're not expensive. I don't think you'll notice that once it's down anyway. But if you cut it at the half, flip it over, peel back the under layer, then you can slide it on and use the tape as a guide. And then again, once it's applied to the windshield, we can go around and edge it out on the top. So that's the plan. Let's see what's possible.
Well, here she is, the final result in theatrical slow-mo. I still don't know if I love the carbon fiber hood. I used to as a teenager. I still love carbon fiber as an adult. But with the gray, the yellow, and then the carbon fiber hood, it looks a little more ricey than I'm going for. I want classy sports car, GT4 racer, not Rice Boy. Let me know what you think.
Well, thank you for checking out the video. I know it was a bit long, especially with the tedious process of putting on some of these numbers and decals. I don't know if you've noticed, the dichotomy in my life is I am a perfectionist, but I resist perfection because then I'm afraid to drive it like it should be driven. So I get super uptight about how things are applied and the work that I do, but at the same time, I intentionally try not to focus on it too much because otherwise I'll be afraid to put it on track and drive it hard. So please let me know what your experience was like if you had your vehicle wrapped or if you're thinking about getting it wrapped. That might help educate me on where this stands.